And finally tonight, an Olympic story that for once requires no spoiler alert. This one focuses on the games and the words, the Olympics, and yes, poetry. Priscilla Uppal is a Toronto-based writer and professor at York University whose work includes 8 collections of verse. She's in London these 2 weeks serving as poet in residence on behalf of Canadian Athletes Now, a nonprofit group supporting that country's athletes. I spoke with her earlier today. Priscilla Uppal, thanks for joining us. I can see I didn't need to say which country you're supporting. It looks like you're having a good time.
I'm having a fabulous time here at the Olympics. I think I have the best job.
So what is the job? What does a poet in residence at the Olympics do?
I have wonderful days. I get up and I get to attend events, some of the sporting athletic events and sometimes other celebratory events. And I try my best to find ways to write about the different sports using some of the history of the sport, some of the wonderful vocabulary of the sport in poetry. And I get to celebrate the summer sports, the athletes, events at the Olympics, and the people that I meet from all over the world who are attending the games and participating in them.
Well, talk to me a little bit about that language of sports. Each sport has its unique terms and words. All of us as viewers are learning them. All that's good material for you, I guess?
Yes, it's wonderful material, and it's material that a lot of poets have not tapped into because it's really like an entirely different language, as many people might feel when they're experiencing those sports on air. And I just love it because it's really metaphorical, it's very playful. Many of the sport terms are basically invented by teenagers and young people as they're inventing the actual moves of the sport. And so there's a lot of metaphoric possibility, there's a lot of room for cleverness, for playfulness, but also sometimes for seriousness, for thinking about the sports and what they teach us and how I can put that into a poem.
Can you give me an example of something playful, something you've had fun with?
Oh, I love the terms in beach volleyball, for instance. They have a lot of terms that have to do with food for some reason. So tuna is when someone gets caught in the volleyball net. But also they have this wonderful term for when a serve is sent over the net and the two players, none of them goes after it, and so the ball just drops between them. And they call this husband and wifing.
Husband and wifing, that is terrible and perfect, right?
It's absolutely perfect. And then we've seen a lot of crashes, unfortunately, in cycling. And when there's a crash and gear flies off and water bottles end up on the street, they call this a yard sale.
That's great, too. Well, poetry, of course, has a long, long history and tradition at the Olympics, ancient and modern, right?
It actually does. There was an ancient poet named Pindar who wrote a number of odes to Olympic athletes. And even in the modern era, from 1912 to 1948, there were actually medals awarded for sport art in 5 different categories, and poetry was one of the 5 categories. So you could potentially have won a medal in athletics as well as art, and in fact 2 people did, an American and a Hungarian. And I think that's a tradition that ought to be brought back. We should have gold medals for poetry.
Not likely, I suppose. Is that getting much traction there?
I'm not sure exactly, but there are a number of people who think it would be a good idea. The reason it was actually discontinued was because the artists were considered to be professionals while the athletes were considered to be amateurs. And now that's really quite reversed. So I might be able to get more traction with that argument.
I'll say those worlds have really turned, haven't they?
Yes.
Okay, could you read one of your poems for us?
So this is called Gymnastics Love Poem. I can honestly say I've bent over backwards for you, executed front flips and twists and somersaults in your name. I've tumbled my way into and out of corners. I've kicked up storms and spun my wheels. I've learned to balance my heart on my sleeve while remaining flexible to all your judgments and opinions. The art of loving is the art of vaulting through the air without a safety net and landing firmly on your feet. The art of loving is the art of iron crosses and crash mats, and when you've built up your strength, the seizing of rings.
Priscilla Uppal, a poet in residence at the London Olympics. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And on our Artbeat page, you can watch Priscilla Uppal read another of her poems. It's called Obsessive Compulsive Cycling Disorder. That's at newshour.pbs.org.